Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Charmaine, this is Ariel, this is Daryl, and we are volunteers from AWARE. So before we begin our presentation for the 19 Change Youth Forum, we're going to show you a very short video.
Thanks for minding your own business.
Hi.
Thanks for not telling anyone.
So how did that video make you feel? Uncomfortable? Yes, well, sexual harassment is a very uncomfortable topic to talk about, which is why sometimes we don't. But just because it's not easy to talk about doesn't mean we don't talk about it at all. Many of you are here because you've experienced or witnessed sexual harassment. Some of you have people close to you who've been sexually harassed. So today, let's talk about it. And the first thing we need to address is, what exactly is sexual harassment? Well, to be honest, it's still a very gray area. So to make things simple, the sexual harassment that we're referring to pertains to the more obvious forms. And these are inappropriate staring, comments, and physical contact. And coming from AWARE, we hear tons of stories from victims from all walks of life. We have victims as young as 12 years old coming forward seeking help. And this is just one of their stories. This girl was sitting in a crowded bus, and the man in front of her kept leaning forward. And it got to the point where she could feel the material of his jeans on her face. And she came to us asking whether it was her fault for letting it happen in the first place. And she was saying things like she didn't know whether it was even intentional because it was crowded. So imagine yourself in her situation. What would you have done? And what should we expect victims to do? Because sexual harassment happens a lot more than you might think. According to our statistics, 1 in 3 Singaporean youths have experienced sexual harassment. While this sounds like a big number, what's of particular concern is sexual harassment in public transport. Because last year, the Singapore Police Force released a report that revealed that the number of cases increased by 43.8%. This sounds like a lot, right? But these are just reported cases. Only 6% of victims reach out for help and report their cases. So just imagine the number of stories that still go unheard. That's ridiculous. Enough is enough. Sexual harassment has been illegal for decades. So why does it continue to persist? It's because of us. Because sometimes as bystanders, we see it happening, but we don't say anything. Because we feel uncomfortable, so we just brush it aside. We can't think that just because we're not sexually harassing someone, that we're not part of this issue. Because when we build this culture of silence, we allow sexual harassment to happen. We can't keep thinking that, oh, I'm just a student, I'm just one person, that my actions won't change a thing. Because here's the thing, it can. Because when we speak out about these issues, people are forced to face the realities of it and do something about it. We're not just students, we're the future. We're not just part of the problem, we are also part of the change. So we can't be passive bystanders anymore. It's time for us to stand up because we can't keep telling victims to protect themselves.
Do you remember this sexual harassment case back in 2017? It was all over the news. So this elderly man was on the train persistently asking a Caucasian American man for sex. And when the American man rejected him, he slapped the American man on the face while the American stayed silent. He did nothing. It was not only until 2 bystanders stood up, took action, did the situation resolve. I don't know about you, but back then when my friends and I first saw this on Facebook, one question kept popping to our minds. Why didn't the American guy do anything? And we weren't alone. Comments on the Facebook post shared our notion. Why you so humpty? Never do anything. The Angmo should have moved away. I would like us all to take note of the persons of focus in these 2 comments. It was not targeted at the sexual harasser or the perpetrator, but rather it was targeted at the victim. And this is a very serious issue because of 2 main reasons. Firstly, it further perpetuates victim blaming. It places the responsibility of the situation on the victim's shoulders. And this notion is much more common than you may think. 1 in 10 believe that people who are sexually harassed are often the cause of it. Who would want to stand up or speak out when they know that they would get blamed for a situation they didn't cause? Secondly, and more importantly, the expectations that we have on the victims are mismatched with what the victims can do in reality. So if we are all in the American guy's shoes, right, we would expect to slap that elderly man's face left, right, center, up, down. But that is not what happens in reality. 70% of sexual harassment victims report tonic immobility during the incident. This means that victims of sexual harassment are paralyzed in fear when they are being sexually harassed. Their bodies can't move the way it normally does, and this leaves them very vulnerable in such instances. And that is not all. Sexual harassment has been shown to wreak havoc on its victims, with victims facing 2 times more likely to experience anxiety and 3 times more likely to experience depression. It is no wonder sexual harassment is so prevalent and so drastically underreported. The fear of being blamed, combined with its disastrous impacts, are inescapable for most victims of sexual harassment. We are the cause for the culture of silence, where victims suffer in fear while perpetrators enjoy impunity. The price for victims to speak out and stand up can be high. It is indeed naive to believe that victims have the power to prevent sexual harassment on their own. However, current traditional prevention efforts focus on the victim. They place the responsibility on the victim's shoulders by focusing on empowering them to stand up and protect themselves. But as highlighted before, the price for victims to speak up can be high. There is a gap between current solutions and reality that is not being met. And studies show that traditional efforts, while they do raise awareness, they do little to prevent sexual harassment. So what can be done? I believe that the power to prevent sexual harassment lies with us. As a friend, classmate, or even a bystander, or even like someone that is a stranger that you see on the street. We as bystanders are in a unique position to do something, to take action on the abuses we see. As highlighted by the American victim case earlier, it was not only until 2 bystanders stood up and took action did the harassment stop. We all should strive to become active bystanders and remember that we have a collective responsibility to prevent sexual harassment wherever we are.
Okay, before I continue to talk more about collective responsibility, can I just get a show of hands? How many of you have heard of the hashtag #MeToo? Okay, so that's quite a significant number of you. See, this is precisely what happens when you bother to speak up and break that culture of silence. People surrounding you become more aware of things such as sexual harassment. So the hashtag first started in 2017 by American actress Alyssa Milano, who used the hashtag to share about her story against sexual assault against Harvey Weinstein, the American film producer. The Me Too movement is just an example of how if one person bothers to speak up and say something about what they've gone through, others will follow suit. And to emphasize on that, there has since been 19 million tweets from when the hashtag first started. So just imagine, if Alyssa Milano had not shared the story, there would still be hundreds and thousands of people keeping their mouths shut and suffering in silence. However, not everyone can stand up or speak up for themselves from the fear of being embarrassed or from the fear of being blamed. And as Daryl mentioned earlier, there have been studies to prove that traditional prevention efforts are not the most effective in preventing sexual harassment from happening. On the contrary, bystander intervention is something that we should all work towards too. More importantly, it's everybody's responsibility to prevent sexual harassment from happening. It doesn't matter who you are, you can take action and you can be an active bystander. So here's the slogan we take after. Stand up, don't stand by. I know you must be thinking that, it's not easy to go and stand up to somebody who's being sexually harassed. You're probably thinking that I should just mind my own business. I don't want to cause a scene, I'm sure somebody else will help. But have you ever thought about how it's actually more daunting for the victim to confront the harasser than it is for you to stand up for them or to create some sort of distraction? And here are some tips and tricks that I have for you in order for, and these are some steps that you can take in order to help derail an incident from happening. So the first step is to analyze the situation. And more importantly, you need to be able to identify the victim and the harasser. Does the victim look uncomfortable based on their facial expressions? Are they inching away from the harasser? Or is the harasser asking the same questions over and over again? Are they asking for personal information? And as a bystander, you need to better assess the situation. Does it look like the victim is going to face physical harm? Or does it look like if you were to intervene in a situation that it's just going to make it worse? More importantly, you need to make sure that you do not put yourself in danger. The second step is direct intervention. So after you've analyzed the situation and you feel like it's safe to do so, then proceed to directly intervene in the situation. More importantly, you have to be firm in what you're going to say to the harasser. You could say something like, "Excuse me, that's very inappropriate." As compared to if you were to say in a tone like, "Excuse me, I think that's very inappropriate." The harasser is not going to take you seriously. And the third step is to create a distraction. If confrontation is not really your thing, then proceed to create a distraction. You could go up to the victim, have a conversation with them, or you could slot yourself in between the victim and the harasser, but only if that is safe to do so. And the last step is to find some sort of support. If confrontation and creating a distraction all sounds a little bit scary to you, and especially if you're alone in that situation, trying to stand up for somebody else, find a friend, find another bystander to do it with you. You're not alone in this situation. Or alternatively, find somebody of authority to help diffuse the situation. So here were the 4 steps. Analyze the situation, direct intervention, create a distraction, and find support. And to end off the presentation, I would like to show you a short video clip.
Thanks for telling the bartender. Thanks for telling HR.
Thanks for getting help.
At the start of the presentation, we showed you a short video clip, and that is the end of the video clip. So this is precisely why we should stand up for victims. It's because we all have the responsibility to prevent sexual harassment from happening. So let's all stand up. Don't stand by.